Free agency rumors are really starting to escalate for the Toronto Maple Leafs as multiple reports have revealed a new Leafs target, and things are really starting to heat up for this guy. So I'm going to break down the exact report as well as discuss who it is, as he is one of the best free agent defensemen available on the market. Stay tuned for all that in this episode of Leafs Digest. But before we do, if you're a part of the large percentage who aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself as we're on the road to 11,000 subscribers. But Darius, a lot to go over today. A new target has been revealed. Now, this is a guy that we've seen the Leafs linked to in the past, but as of the past few days, things are really starting to pick up, and this would be a perfect fit, quite frankly, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, even if it might be on a potentially shorter term deal, depending on how things work out. But let's just dive right into it. It is Chris Tanev. An original report dropped here. There's a lot that was from The Athletic. There's more we're trying to get into, but you basically see here that Tanev holds the most appeal to the Leafs, and it basically goes on to say that one path they may take with the 34-year-old is to offer him more term than the potential 4 years that he might be getting offered from other teams. And that will obviously bring the cap hit down a little bit and allow things to be more flexible. We're going to dive into some more reports, but there's tons of reports linking Chris Tanev to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They almost got him at the deadline. They didn't have a second round pick thanks to Kyle Dubas, so Brad Treliving didn't have too much to work with there. He's a 34-year-old. What are your thoughts on giving him a hefty deal, maybe north of 4 years?
I was really feeling good about this player around the trade deadline, right? Because you had nothing committed to him. He was just going to join you for the playoff run. But now that they're talking about 4 years, 5-year deals, right? I'm a little skeptical and I'm getting a little worried because you can get in a lot of trouble with that because this is a player who hasn't really played a lot because of injury, right? He has a lot of injury history the last couple of years. And again, he's getting older, right? 34 years old. He's getting up there in age. He blocks shots with his face, right? He puts his body on the line. He's that type of player. So I'm a little worried. I think he would definitely help the Leafs, right? Like on paper, I think that would be a good signing. He would definitely help the Leafs. He brings a lot of experience. He made the Western Conference final this past season with the Dallas Stars. So he would definitely help you. He's a right shot defenseman. He's exactly the type of player that the Leafs need to add more of, right? He can move the puck. He's a very useful player, but I'm a little worried because of his age and that term. That would take him to 39. I don't think he's going to see the end of that contract. You're probably going to have to trade him and a draft pick just to get out from under that contract at the end. So yes, he would help the Leafs in the next year or two, but that would be, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about that, but I do think on paper, he would definitely help the Leafs.
Yeah, the question is what his effectiveness will be. He is already 34 now. He's not going to be putting up tons of points or anything like that, but he has great advanced metrics. He's obviously one of the best defensive defensemen in the league, put up 19 points last year, which is still fairly respectable, especially given how many shots he blocks, how many different things he does on the forecheck, everything. He's really good. He's a very good player,
Yep.
but the question is 34 years old is a little bit absurd for him to get a 4 to 5 year contract. But let's dive into some of the more reports. So you can see from Elliot Freeman saying the market for him is going to be very hot, and he doesn't think Vancouver can do it. It's going to be a very, very hot market for Tanev if he doesn't sign in Dallas. And this was like about 10 days ago. And then these reports have come out since saying the Leafs are really going for him. And like it said in The Athletic here, James Myrtle, the Leafs are going to have to not overpay necessarily, but construct their contract in a way that really convinces him to come. And you can see here from Kevin Papetti, Chris Tanev is essentially a perfect fit for the Leafs if he's willing to retire. If his game drops off in a couple years, he's less of a fit if he wants to be the next Marlowe and 100% committed to playing out his contract. And you kind of mentioned it, like they're going to, in any world where they get him, they're probably going to sign him for 4 or 5 years and then hopefully try to win the cup in the next 2 to 3. And really over the next year or two is when his value is going to be worth the contract, similar to John Tavares, even though John Tavares obviously is still a very solid player. They will, if they sign him for a long-term deal, they're going to need to lock in and win over the next few years, or else it's going to age not great for the Leafs.
Well, that's exactly it, right? If they sign this player, you're signing him for the next 2 years, I think, maybe 3 years, right? Because he's going to start to slow down pretty quickly, especially the type of game he plays. And like I mentioned, a little bit of injury history the last couple of years. So LTI retire is one of the funniest ways I've heard that put. And that could be an option too, if he maybe agrees to that. I don't know if that's something in the CBA, if that's even allowed, but maybe if it's something that they agree to, or, like I said, they're going to have to trade him. There's no way he's going to still be a Leaf at the end of a 5-year contract at 34 years old. It just won't happen. So I wonder if he ends up retiring halfway through or something like that, because it's not a 35 plus contract either. So a lot of routes the Leafs can go here, but at the end of the day, like I said, he would definitely help you the next 2 years, right? So it depends on the length of the contract and how much you're signing him for. Because I think the AAV does come down if you offer him a longer contract, which might be why Toronto's appealing to him. But the end of that contract will be a disaster. There's ways to get out from under it, but it'll be a mess.
Yeah, it's a bit of a high risk, high reward signing considering he's 34, and that's kind of what this report originally from James Myrtle said. Like, you're gonna sign him. The cap hit will be better for the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially if you're gonna go all in over the next few years, depending on what they do with Mitch Marner. But your issue then is the last few years of the deal, and this is assuming it's a 5-year deal and not more. I can't imagine he's going to get any contract more than 5 years. I'm almost surprised he's getting one that's 4 years long. But this came out literally 20 minutes ago. It says, I firmly believe that Chris Tanev will be a Toronto Maple Leaf, and this is on First Up by Carlo. Now, again, not the most reliable reporter. He has some sources, I'm sure, but he said, I firmly believe that Tanev will be a Toronto Maple Leaf. Darius, what are your thoughts on this new report that came out? Again, not the most reliable reporter, but he firmly believes that Tanev is going to be a Leaf, and I guess it kind of makes sense with the way things have been heating up over the past few days to a week or so.
Yeah, if somebody like Chris Johnson said something like this, I'd be all over it, right? But the fact that it's Carlo, I think he has insight and he's, in tune, and he has connections and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's something to this, right? There's smoke there for sure. And I think that's all it is. There's smoke, right? I think he has an inkling that Tanev might be interested in Toronto, and I'll just leave it at that. But I think it would be an interesting fit. And obviously, like we've mentioned the last couple of weeks and since the trade deadline, where there's smoke, there's usually fire, right? If something's happening and there's talks going on, I'm sure he does have interest in coming home to Toronto to play for the Leafs. The Leafs are looked at as a contender. Depends what Mitch Marner, that whole situation with Mitch Marner plays out too, because they might have more salary cap space to make the team better. So obviously the team is appealing. I think he does end up a Toronto Maple Leaf at the end of the day, because he played for the Calgary Flames. Brad Treliving was the Calgary Flames GM. There's a fit there, right? So I do think he does end up. I'm just very skeptical about the contract.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And with all these, you mentioned smoke. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire with these things. And there's just a lot of different reporters. Like this one's from Myrtle, this one's from Carlo. And you just have a lot of different guys. And you had Elliot Freeman saying, and Elliot Freeman linked the Leafs to Tanev as well multiple times throughout this offseason as well, even though we haven't covered it directly in a video. You can see here, per cap friendly, the Ryan Suter buyout will give Dallas $2.8 million extra cap space this year. That's a crucial amount for the Stars to do what they need to do this summer, starting with Chris Tanev. So there's a side to it where he re-signs with the Dallas Stars. But one thing here before we wrap up, you can see here from Siegel and Myrtle regarding Tanev, looks like straight up confirmation that Tanev is looking for 4 years. As they say, you can, again, one path they may look for is for the 34-year-old is extend the term. So 4 years minimum. Maybe the Leafs, and let's say the Stars offer him 4 years and the Leafs offer 5. He'll probably take the 5 years given his age, because they'll get a bit more money and trying to solidify his future. And if that's what it takes, I won't be necessarily against it, as long as they make more subsequent moves to really shape out the blue line, because it's no secret that Brad Treliving needs and wants to augment that blue line.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This can't be your only move on the blue line. It would certainly help, right? But it can't be your only move on the blue line. And we talked about and mentioned maybe a Mitch Marner trade where you bring in a defenseman, right? So that could be an option as well. But I like this move. I'm skeptical of the contract. And if it's your only move on defense, it's a disaster. But if he's, one piece of maybe 2 or 3 other ones, then I think obviously the Leafs will look very different and in a good way next year.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts are on that in the comment section down below. Things are really starting to heat up, so we'll have you covered all the way. So make sure to subscribe button. See you soon.